Disaster Recovery and Business Continuity Solutions from Clients First Business Solutions. 70% of all businesses that suffer significant data loss or outages for more than 2 weeks are out of business in less than 2 years. This according to a survey that Symantec took in 2011. In that same survey, half of the small and mid-sized businesses, or SMBs, have no backup and disaster recovery plan. And of the half that did have a plan, only 28% actually tested their plan, and half of them only implemented it after having some type of outage or loss. So you can see here the breakdown of the remaining 50%. Even 14% actually have no intention to even create a business plan for dealing with disasters. The average small business or mid-sized company experienced 6 outages in 2011. Some of the top reasons for that downtime are natural disasters, power outages, hardware failure, cyber attacks, and the like. Let's look at the cost of downtime by the numbers. On average, it costs $12,500 per day for every day a small and mid-sized business is unable to access its IT systems. 44% of companies surveyed have had one of their own vendors temporarily shut down because of computer issues. 54% of those companies surveyed had switched vendors due to an unreliable computer system at their vendor's end. And 70% of the companies who lost data and systems for more than 2 consecutive weeks were out of business in 2 years. For those companies who do back up, here are some of the problems. Half of those companies only back up 60% of their data. Less than 50% of these companies back up more than weekly. 31% don't back up their email systems, and 21% don't back up core applications like enterprise resource planning or CRM solutions. Some of the problems with existing backup solutions are tape is notoriously slow and unreliable. Something as simple as storing it in too cold or too humid an environment can make the tapes unusable when you need them. Off-site rotation procedures, where somebody's in charge of taking tapes or hard drives off-site on a regular basis, often get lazy, whether people move instead of to a daily to more of a weekly or even less frequently off-site rotation. And there is cloud backup solutions that seem to be very popular, like Carbonite or Mozy. But what people don't realize is they can be unacceptably slow for emergency purposes in a business situation. RPO. This term stands for Recovery Point Objective. RTO. Recovery Time Objective. These are the two components that determine what type of solution that you need. Recovery Point Objective means at what point can you afford to lose your data. If you're only rotating your drives or tapes off-site weekly and you were to suffer a disaster, that means you could lose over a week's worth of data when you restore it, because none of your data that's changed since the tapes or drives were taken off-site would be available. What can you afford? Most companies can afford seconds or minutes of loss, but could you afford hours or, more importantly, days of data being lost when you restore? Recovery time objective is how long can you wait to not have access to your systems. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, or weeks. Most traditional backup solutions have recovery time objectives typically approaching days or weeks in the event of a total disaster. The closer you get to the center, which is where you have something occur, the more expensive solutions typically are, until our Clients First Business Disaster Recovery solution become available. Recovery point comparisons. Let's look at how much data you might lose in a typical recovery scenario in which you had a hard drive failure or other localized problem. With a cloud backup solution, you could have as little as a few minutes to as much as hours of days of loss, depending on your scenario. If you have a very slow uplink to the internet and you have a lot of transactions, then sometimes cloud backup solutions can actually lag behind your live situation quite a long time. With tape backup solutions, they're typically done on a once-a-day basis, so that you could lose as much as 24 hours of data if you needed to restore from a tape. With a hard drive backup solution, they're typically configured to back up once or twice per day, so you might lose half a day's work to as much as a day's work depending on your specific scenario. With the client's first BDR solution, you would lose only as little as 5 minutes of data because the solution can continuously back up your situation. Now, all of this assumes that you don't have a complete disaster in which your backup device is destroyed too. If you have a disaster in which you have no access to or your backup device is destroyed, then cloud backup solutions and the client's first solution, which also uses the cloud, are able to recover your data quite recently. However, with a tape backup or hard drive backup, if you're not taking your tapes and rotating them off-site frequently, we've seen people lose weeks or even a month of data depending on the last time their drives were taken off-site. Let's look at recovery time comparisons. That is, how long after having a problem can you be back up and running? If somebody inadvertently deleted a file or a folder from your system or your servers, with a traditional backup solution, specifically a hard drive-based solution, you can be back up and have that file restored in minutes if you have an advanced or an IT user in-house. With our solution, you too can have that file back in minutes. If your local operating system was corrupted with a virus or a Windows update that went bad, you could be down 2 to 3 hours with a virtual-based server and 1 to 2 days with a physical server. With our solution, you'd be down only 5 to 10 minutes. If you had a local hardware failure in which your hardware hard drive or motherboard or other component went down, you wouldn't be back up and running and accessible for anywhere between 2 and 14 days. Again, with our solution, you'd be back up and running in 5 to 10 minutes. In the event of a natural disaster where your facilities were destroyed or rendered inaccessible for a long period of time, you could have loss of access to your systems for 2 weeks all the way up to a month. With our solution, you can be back up and running anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. What are some of the reasons for these really long times to recover with traditional solutions for backup? If your server was physically damaged, it could take 2 weeks to receive a new server because all servers are usually built to order from manufacturers. This time even gets longer if there is a state of disaster or some type of natural disaster in which the demand for servers spikes very quickly within the region. It can take 4 weeks or longer to download a terabyte or more of data from a service like Carbonite unless they have some type of hard drive service, which still typically takes a week from those companies. It can take from 2 to 5 days to get a technician out to your site after your new equipment arrives if you don't have internal IT folks. Again, this number expands depending on how big a situation in terms of a disaster that occurs, as the technicians will be juggling many clients. Physical servers can take days to rebuild from a blank state due to hardware differences. When you get your new server, you can't simply restore your backup from your old server. You have to reinstall the operating system, all of your applications, all patches, and then start restoring your data to the servers and reset them up. Because if you install the old image of your server on new hardware, it won't work because the hardware environment is different. If you use virtual servers, this problem goes away. So when you look at all of these, it can be as much as a month to have your systems live after having a destruction of your equipment. What is virtualization in the term we used? Virtualization is becoming a very popular way to manage servers. Historically, you had your server as a box, and if you needed an Exchange server, you would buy a box, and a file server, you would buy a box, and an accounting system server, you'd buy a box. Now you can buy one heavy-duty box, and through the use of virtualization software, like VMware, you're able to run images of multiple computers in one, where each of these machines thinks it's its own computer on a separate piece of hardware, when in reality they are all running on one box. And each of these servers look like they have the same hardware environment, so it is easier to take this server and restore it to another hardware virtualization box if this machine was destroyed. Now, with that in hand, let's look at our client's first business disaster recovery solution. In this diagram, this represents your servers. Let's say you have 3 servers: a web server, a Microsoft Exchange server, and a file server. And here's your local area network and your firewall. Here is our disaster recovery appliance connected into your network, just like any other server. This appliance is constantly taking images from your servers and backing it up inside the appliance's own RAID-based hard drives. In addition, it's sending versions of those images through 256-bit encryption through the internet to two separate data centers, one in Pennsylvania and one in Colorado. This way, if you're based on the East Coast and the entire coast loses power, you can still operate from the West Coast data center. Each of your servers can be copied or backed up as often as every 5 minutes. Backups can automatically be screenshotted, meaning an image of the boot screen of each backup can automatically be created and emailed to you so that you know the backed up version of your machine is fully bootable in the event of an emergency. The time you don't want to find out that your machine and the backup system isn't working is when you need to go and use it. The solution also covers message level exchange and SharePoint recovery, which means if somebody just accidentally deleted an important email or email folder, we can go in and extract out that information from a backup and restore it to your live Exchange server without restoring the entire Exchange server and losing any mail that occurred since the backup. You can fully manage the solution via the web, either on-premise or remotely. It's very easy to install and set up, often under 30 minutes. And the solution starts as small as 500 gigabytes to as large as a 40 terabyte system. So let's go ahead and take a look at the solution. First thing we're going to do is log into our system through our web browser, and we can do that locally or through the internet. Once logged in, we're brought into our main screen, which is our agent screen. This screen shows us all of the servers that we have backed up. In our case, we have 9 different servers that we back up. One of those servers we're going to be working with today is a test server we have set up for this environment. What we're going to do is take a look at that server. This is a live server now. We indicated that on the desktop. That's a basic Windows 2008 R2 server. It's fully operational. You can run applications on it and the like. This would be like any of your servers. So we'll go ahead and minimize this. And on our Agents tab, let's take a look at the details behind this test server backup. One of the options we have is our basic options. And this is where you set up when you'll be backing up this server. Our servers are set to back up Monday through Friday, generally on the hour throughout the day, and one time on Saturday and Sunday, since we're normally not in the office on those days. You can adjust these to any hours and times. Now within those hours, the system is set up to back up once per hour, but you can make it as frequently as every 5 minutes. The system calculates that we'll have 62 backups of this server each week. In addition, we've told the system to every day send 1 copy of our servers up to the cloud, but you can go as frequently as every hour if you'd like, or every backup, depending on your bandwidth and needs. You can also prioritize it so that your more important servers are sent to the cloud before your less important servers. We'll go back to our agents. And the next thing we'll look at in here under our test server is our recovery points. This shows us all of the backups that we have for this server, starting from the newest, and if we scroll down, going to the oldest. Now you'll notice the older backups were backed up once per week, and then they were backed up after once per week. Then the system moved into a daily backup and then into hourly backups. So the system is designed to tell you how often you want it to collapse up your backups. So typically, months old backups will just be 1 per month, and then a backup that's say over a month but less than 2 months, you might have 1 backup per week, and then 1 backup per day, and then all the way down to your hours. In addition, these symbols each have a meaning. This star means that this backup was sent off-site and is properly replicated in the cloud at the 2 data centers. In addition, that backup was screenshotted. What that means is after the system made the backup, it automatically booted up that particular backup in the virtual environment and made sure that it got to a login screen without any problems, giving you the confidence to know that this is a bootable image of your server. At any point, if you wanted, you can click on any of these and make an additional screenshot of it to make sure that that particular one is intact. In addition, you have some options in each of these backups. File Restore allows us to go ahead and mount this particular snapshot from that point and make it available from any Windows machine at this Windows Explorer address, or we can go ahead and look at the files right in here. In addition, you have the ability to export these images, and we can export the image in VHD or virtual hard drive format or VMDK. VHD are used by Microsoft's Virtualization, and VMDK is used by VMware if you use virtual servers. And Bare Metal Restore allows you to connect a cable between our device and your old or new server and reformat it into a snapshot of the way that server looked at this point in time. Our solution will automatically inject the latest hardware drivers when restoring to your new machine. This way, you can use your backup that you took and operate as if the machine continued working versus reinstalling all of your operating systems, applications, and data. You'll also notice that these backups are very small, 800K, 2 megabytes. Very, very small files in the scheme of things, considering the hard drive is probably 100 gigabytes or more. That's because after the initial backup, all the system backs up is the differences between the files. However, in the older technologies, if you deleted any one of these backups, then none of the backups that came after it would be usable because it would no longer add together. However, our solution uses a patented technology called inverse chain technology. That means if I wanted to delete this particular snapshot, and I say, am I sure? That snapshot is quickly removed, but all of the snapshots that came after it are fully usable versions of the machine. So now we're going to go ahead and assume that we had a failure on our test server, such as a virus infection, hard drive failure, or the like. From our device, we can go to our local virtualization tab, and here we'll see all of our devices that are being backed up. Under here, we have the option to start a copy or virtual machine of the latest backup, or pick any point in time in the past that's been backed up. So we'll go ahead and pick one of these and go ahead and say Start. In addition to that, you have various other options to configure networking or adjust resources such as how much RAM or CPUs. In Configure Networking, you can decide if you want this machine to be a live machine on your network or to be isolated from your live machine so that you can experiment with it or use it in a quote-unquote sandbox so that it doesn't affect your live environment, which is what we're going to do here. This sandbox feature adds an important ability to bring up a copy of your systems at any point in time and try out the latest patch or upgrade to your software or accounting system before applying it to your live environment to make sure that everything works right. Now that that clone or backup copy of our machine is mounted, we'll go ahead and log into it. So we click on Connect to it, and we'll open up our connection screen, and we'll go ahead and bring up the machine, which is just finishing its booting process. We'll go ahead and log in and log into the system. Now that we're logged in, we're just going to change the desktop background so we can better recognize this machine when we move forward. So we're going to go to our display settings, go to desktop background, and select a different background. This background has the word original backup on it. So thus you can see here is our clone of our machine and here is our actual live machine. So now let's go ahead and make a change on our live server. We'll go ahead to just the WordPad application and create a simple document. This is a test. And we'll save a copy of this. And we'll save a copy of this to our documents directory, and we'll call it test. And we'll also just save a copy on our desktop so that we can see it more easily. We'll go ahead and close it. So now that we see we have this document on our live server, and obviously it's not in our backed up server or a copy of our server. So now we're going to go back to the device and make a new backup of our live server manually. We'll go back to our agents. We'll go to our server here. And we'll say go ahead and start a backup. So the system is now going to make a fresh backup of this server. It's going through its process. And it's very quick because the system is only backing up what's changed since the last backup. And that's due to its very efficient backup client. You'll also notice while this is occurring, the system is doing multiple other backups on other servers simultaneously to give you an idea of the power of the solution. So this is now backed up. And if we were to go ahead and look at our access recovery points, we'll see that there's a brand new backup now, and the total size difference between the last backup and this one is less than 1.5 megs, but each of these can be run as independent machines. Matter of fact, we'll go ahead to the file restore, where you can see how we can go ahead and just pull files off of a backup. In this point, we'll just use the browser to find the file that we want. So we can just click the link here and see the directories of the machine. And we'll go ahead and just go into the Documents and Settings, Administrator, who I logged in as, and Desktop or Documents. And in Documents, you'll see the Test RTF document, which was the WordPad document we created. If we go up a directory, we can also look at the desktop and see the other copy we saved here. And we could just simply click on this and now download it locally and use that file in any way that we need it. So we'll go back to the agents list, however, and let's go ahead and run the copy of the system that we just backed up. So we'll go to local virtualization, and we're currently running the older version, so we'll go ahead and unmount that. And in this case, we're not going to save any changes that we made. And as soon as that's unmounted, we can go ahead then and start a new virtual machine, which again, we can pick any time or just say start the latest one, which was just backed up. So it'll quickly load that machine up and start the boot process as soon as it's done loading. You can see the time it takes for the machine to get ready to boot is only about 15 to 30 seconds depending on the size of the machine. A very, very fast process. So now the machine is starting to boot, and we'll connect to it. You can see it booting up. And then as soon as it's done booting, we'll go ahead and hit Control-Alt-Delete to log on. And we'll log into the machine. So now that we're logged in, we'll go ahead and just change the desktop background so that it's again obvious which server is which. So we'll go into our screen settings, change the background, pick the one that says New Backup, and we'll see now we're in the new backup of the machine. This backup has our WordPad document on it, and we can still bring up our live server. And we can still bring up our live server. So here's our live server, and here is our backup, which contains the new information that we put on it. So you can see the system has the ability to bring you back to any point in time and have a live operating machine available within minutes. In addition, if we go ahead and look at our Off-Site tab, the system is showing which of our backups have been sent off-site. You can see all of our servers are fully synchronized to the cloud, so that if something happened to our entire server network or our building, we can go and log into the cloud and start up those servers from anywhere. You can see there are various options, how often to back up to the cloud, how much speed or bandwidth to allow. The system allows you to throttle how much internet bandwidth is used to back up to the cloud during business hours, and then after business hours you can open it up and use up much more bandwidth so that you can be sure all of your information is available. The system also will show you, based on your actual capabilities, how much data you can synchronize per day, so you can get a feel for how much you actually synchronized and what your capabilities are. You also have the option to temporarily pause off-site sync. Say you're doing a large-scale, high-bandwidth webinar and you need all of your bandwidth available. You can temporarily turn the off-site synchronization off. For our final step in our demonstration, we're going to assume our facility is inaccessible or damaged and that we need to bring up our server in the cloud. We are in our cloud status portal on the web, which is accessible from anywhere, and you can see all of our servers that are backed up and when the last successful backup to the cloud occurred. So we'll go ahead and click the icon next to the server we're interested in, and we can see all of our snapshots that have been backed up over time. Our system in our demonstration only backs up once per day, but this can be as frequent as you want. So we'll pick our latest backup here, and then we can go ahead and specify our memory allocation that we want and say create virtual machine. Now the system's going ahead and creating a virtual machine ready to boot up in the cloud. Now we can go ahead and pick the same type of network options we had before in terms of running the machine in a test environment or putting it live on the net so that we can access the machine for production in a case of an emergency. So we'll go ahead and just take the default test settings here. Now we'll go ahead and download our remote desktop shortcut, which allows us to access the machine just like as if we were on premises. So we'll now go ahead and log into that machine, put in our password, and we'll be taken to our desktop. And we've gone ahead and taken the liberty and put Cloud Server on the desktop so that you can see. You can also see from the address here that this particular desktop is in the cloud and is not on our local network. So we'll go ahead and bring them all up side by side. So this is our live production server. This is our local copy of the server running in our appliance, our device. You can see again, both of these are live machines that work. Live server, local copy of it in case the live server went down, and finally this is our cloud version of the same server running over the internet in case everything in our building was destroyed and we still needed to access our systems. So what you're seeing here is really the power of the solution. 1, 2, 3 servers, all running as copies of each other depending on your situation. So in summary, the Clients First Disaster Recovery Solution allows you to make backups of your entire IT infrastructure up to every 5 minutes. It then allows you to restore any of your servers and have them running again within 5 minutes on site. In the event of a disaster, you can be up and running in the cloud within 30 minutes. Once you have your servers repaired and replaced, you are able to restore those servers very quickly from our solution. And most importantly, in the end, the solution is all about avoiding business interruption and allowing you to service your clients very efficiently. So contact us for a free evaluation of what your needs might be. You can call us at the number listed here, or visit our website, or email us at info@clientsfirst-us.com. Thank you for your time.